Hey, this is Robbie Baseball from the Dingers Fantasy Baseball Podcast, and you are listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 187, ZZ Top. Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. Derek, how are you, my friend? It's been a long time since we've been in the studio.
Between summer vacations from real life and just, stuff happens, man. It's summertime. So family stuff.
Yeah, believe it or not, this is really surprising. This might surprise a lot of people. This is not our full-time job.
It's not?
Yeah, I know. It's a real shock.
We don't get paid millions of dollars to do this podcast? You're kidding me.
Well, in the summertime, we like to take a little bit of a break and, we do some things. Squeezing time to get into the studio it's always challenging for us in the summer. This year's been no exception, obviously. But here we are. We're talking about ZZ Top this episode. Unfortunately, the band's bassist, Dusty Hill, passed away. So with both Derek and I being such big fans of the band, we thought it would be a good idea to devote an entire episode to it. But before we get started on that, Derek, is there anything new in the world of pop culture for you in our time off this summer?
Oh my God, so much. We don't even have time to talk about all of it. So I'm just going to sort of pick. I'm going to pick a sort of a favorite of mine. So, as is often the case, when a movie is going to be released and it's a sequel, I like to go back and watch the one that came out before it, so that when I go to see the sequel, the details from the previous movie are still fresh, because any decent sequel will reference back to the last film. And if you don't remember the last film, you're sort of missing a little bit of those Easter eggs and some of that story continuity.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
It's a good rule of thumb. I've done this all my life.
Like it.
So the new James Bond movie called No Time to Die was supposed to come out just around the time the pandemic started. But apparently one of the key plot points in the movie is about a plague or a pandemic. And so in the interest of good taste, they obviously didn't release it. And then in the interest of making money, they're like, nobody's in the theater. We are also not going to release it. So it's been delayed. And now they're like, it's going to be coming out soon, probably between now and Christmas time. As so many other movies that have been delayed are now all starting to come out. So my wife and I decided we were going to go back and rewatch all of the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, so that we had a clear memory of like what were the main plot points, who were the heroes, who were the villains, who were the allies, what were the stories. Because even though every James Bond movie is fairly self-contained, the ones that have come out more recently have had some ongoing story threads that have continued. So we went back and rewatched them recently. And before we did that, I had said to her, you know what? I kind of want to rewatch all the Mission Impossible movies before we watch the James Bond movies. Because they're also
you have a lot of time this summer, apparently.
Well, yeah, we've had a lot of time. So I actually, I only owned a couple of the Mission Impossible movies. So I said, I went online and there are 6 Mission Impossible movies, and you can get them all in a 6 Blu-ray collection for like $40. I'm like, done. Bought them. They arrived the next day from Amazon. So over the next 6 days, we watched them. And let me tell you, if you haven't seen all of the Mission Impossible movies, you are doing yourself a disservice. These movies are fantastic. The second one is clearly the bummer of the group, but the first one was really good. The second one, a little bit of a dip. And then 3 was good. 4 was better. 5 was better than 4. And 6 was better than 5. And those last 3 Mission Impossible movies were just like, they got better and better. They were fantastic. So we watched those and we're like, wow, these are great. And like, you forget that Tom Cruise is in his 50s in these last ones. You're like, my God, this guy is doing a lot of crazy stuff for a guy in his 50s, but they're very entertaining.
Guess how many Mission Impossible movies I've seen?
I'm guessing 0.
0 is correct. Yes, you are right. You got that one correct. 0.
All right. So we watched the Mission Impossible movies, and that was sort of the bar.
Yeah.
Then we watched the James Bond movies, and we sort of went, these share a lot of the same kind of plot points as the Mission Impossible movies. And so the James Bond movies were almost a little bit of a letdown after watching the Mission Impossible movies. But when we went back and looked at when the movies were released, the Bond movies came out before the Mission. So it's like Skyfall came out in 2012, and then a Mission Impossible movie came out like 3 years later that had almost the same plot. And then James Bond Spectre came out in 2015. And then like 2 years later, a Mission Impossible movie came out with almost the same plot. But because we had watched the Mission Impossible movies first, the Bond movies just sort of felt like a little bit of a letdown, which was kind of disappointing. So although we got caught up on the Bond movies, and although we enjoyed the Bond movies, we're like, they don't seem as good as the Mission, at least for me. They didn't feel as good as the Mission Impossible movies. I'd still recommend them all. If you haven't seen them or you haven't seen them in a while, go back and rewatch them. They're certainly definitely worth the rewatch. But I am definitely looking forward to the new Bond movie. But I'm really hoping that it's better than the last Mission Impossible movie. And the last Mission Impossible movie was very strong. So it's kind of a high bar that's been set. So we'll see. I'm all totally geared up now for this next spy movie. So That's how I've spent the last few weeks, is doing all this binging of all these spy films. And they've been good in their own right, but some have clearly been better than others. And I would say check out those last 3 Mission Impossible movies, like watch them in a row, 4, 5, 6. They were awesome.
Nice. I have some things pop culture related and non-pop culture related that I'd like to share with you. So the first thing is, in some of my spare time, I did a radio ad for a radio station, and it's like in Midwestern Ontario, and it's this radio station that kind of rebranded, and I did the ad for them. So do you want to hear the ad?
Of course I do.
All right, I'm going to play it for you right now. Here it is.
Okay.
Hey, I'm not a Bay Street trader or an account executive, and I don't live in a high-rise or eat escargot or own a Tesla. And I don't know Jim or Tom or Teresa from Bruce County, although I'm sure they're really, really nice. We have 2 MPs and 2 MPPs that we share with our neighbors. I speak Bruce County, not big city, and I pronounce it Lucknow, not Lucknow. And I can proudly carry beer in my backpack. I believe in keeping the peace and sometimes disturbing it. Campfires, not fine dining, and that going out for a rip is a proud and important part of our heritage, and that the bend in your ball cap matters, and it's the tub at the tip of the Bruce. Bruce County is the #1 county alphabetically in the province, the birthplace of that guy who scored the goal against Russia, the best people in all of Canada. My name is Chris, and I am the Bruce. Thank you. Okay, so that was one thing I did over my my summer vacation. That's on 97.7 The Bruce with our good buddy Brian Longmire. He's the morning guy over there, and so I did that.
I just want to congratulate you on being recent, considering that the ad you're spoofing came out in 2000 and we're in 2021. So,
exactly.
Way to keep on top of current trends. Good job.
For me,
what else you been up to, Chris?
For me, that's new. You got to remember, it came out after 1989.
Of course,
so for me, it's like, hey, that's a new thing. A couple other things happened to me. Derek, as you know, I finished up my schooling and I was conferred my graduate degree. I now have an MBA. So there's this thing apparently where when you graduate, people give you gifts, and I received a gift. I'm not going to say who gave it to me, but it's here in the studio. You know those Funko Pop things, those little figures?
I have a handful of them myself.
So I got one that's Fonzie. It's so awesome.
Nice.
It's like my favorite thing. It's right beside my Stream Deck. So the person,
Chris, is that because in your master's degree you got all A's?
I did. You should be doing the dad joke of the week.
I totally should. Stepping on your joke, man.
Yeah, I know. So obviously I'm more educated than I was on our last show. And one of the things I did to celebrate was I took the family on a vacation to Quebec. We went to Montreal. We went to Quebec City. We went whale watching in the St. Lawrence Seaway. It was amazing. And especially if you take into account, I speak zero French, but I was still able to get us around La Belle Province. So it was good. And speaking of French, the other thing I wanted to mention was...
Très bien.
Thank you. I've spent a lot of time up at the trailer, this summer. I'd mentioned that before. And we went up there after our trip to Quebec. And I've mentioned to you before here on the podcast, one of the things that we like to do with our friends when we're up at the trailer, because we have a couple, good couples that we hang out with. And one of the things we like to do is we sit around the campfire at night and we play a game of catchphrase. And you know how that game works, Derek? I've mentioned it before.
Yep.
Yeah, so you get like a word or a phrase and you have to describe it without using those words, and then people have to guess what it is. And let's just say that I'm a little bit competitive, especially when it comes to games. I think maybe even more so when it's games about pop culture. So anyway, one of our friends had their parents join us for a game, and they're from Quebec. So English is their second language. So obviously that puts them at a distinct disadvantage in a game like this, because it's all about communication, right? So anyway, they speak French. And so we're playing a category of entertainment words and phrases, right up my alley, right? And it was their turn to describe it. And the mom, she says, this thing happened when the thing and the other thing get together, and, they do the third thing together. That? What is that? And I'm like, marriage? Family? Like two things? Third? I don't know. And she's like, no, the thing and the other thing get together and they do the third thing, and the third thing happen. And it's like, time's up. And she's like, oh man, I'm sorry. It's Jennifer Lopez. I look at her. I'm like, how the hell does the thing and the other thing equal the third thing? And that is freaking Jennifer Lopez. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I can get there. I understand it now.
The look I got from my wife, it would tell you, it was like two daggers shooting across the campfire. I tell you, if looks can kill. Like I say, I'm a little competitive, but oh man, I tell you, just like figure the ting and the ting.
I think if she could hear your insensitive French accent right now, she'd be staring daggers at you again, buddy.
No kidding. I'm apparently quite mean. I think I'm also a little bit lame because according to my kids, we've got this.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
Derek, this week's dad joke doesn't come from me. It comes from Jake Shornick. Okay? So Jake reached out to me and he sent this one to me. So I thought I'd share it. Okay? Derek, what did the poet say to Luke Skywalker?
Oh, something awful, I'm sure. I have no idea.
Metaphors be with you. Metaphors? Metaphors be with you?
That joke hurts me on two levels, as a podcaster and as a professional communicator.
You don't like it? Don't blame me. Blame Jake.
You suck, Jake.
I'm like a little kid at Christmas.
Were you wearing your neck full of gold?
I love Christmas. I always have.
Okay.
I thought it would only be fitting that I write a song.
Boo. Boo.
'Cause we all got to go up Shit's Creek.
There's 3 piles of poop. Which one do you like the most? Well, this one.
I guess that's just my groove.
Do you drink a lot of rum and then record? Like, is that the connection?
So, Derek, a number of years ago, my wife said to me, just out of the blue, she's like, is there anyone that you have never seen in concert, but you want to see in concert? And I actually had 2. One was the Bare Naked Ladies, and the other one was ZZ Top. And lucky for me, the Bare Naked Ladies played at the Aurelia Folk Festival a couple of years ago. I took my son. He was around 10 years old at the time. And so we got to see them. And then, I want to say it was about 5 years ago, ZZ Top came to Canada. And Derek, you and I, we went together to see them. And I'm so glad we did. Like, not just because I've always been a huge fan of ZZ Top, but because, as I mentioned at the top of the show recently, we got the very sad news that ZZ Top bassist Dusty Hill passed away. And it got us thinking that we should maybe dedicate an entire show to one of our favorite bands, ZZ Top. So maybe we can just start with that. Like, what is it that made ZZ Top one of our favorite bands? Like, Derek, do you want to start?
Sure. So we did a podcast not too long ago this year where we had to pick our top 5 favorite rock songs from the 80s.
Yes.
And
with our good friend Michael Gouvier was on.
Yes. And,
that's right.
And I had Sharp Dressed Man on my list.
You did.
Because it's one of my all-time favorite songs. It's definitely my number 1 or number 2 favorite ZZ Top song without question. It's just a straight up classic. It's a rock song. It's both a little bit blues and a little bit rock. It's got that sort of Southern Texas sound. It's just got a lot of things that I really enjoy in a rock song, which is part of the reason I picked it. But ZZ Top's one of those bands that when I was younger, I didn't really care for them that much at first. And then the more I heard them and the more the songs got played, because they have had a lot of hits that have definitely lasted the test of time. And the more you hear some of their songs, the more they start to just embed themselves in your brain. And you're like, you have to admit, they've got a lot of great songs. And even if you may not love them at first, sort of the more you hear them, the more you start to have to appreciate and say, this is a pretty damn good song. And I think more and more of their library did that to me over the years, where I was just like, I may not have loved it when I first heard it, although some I did, but for a lot of them, I'm like, yeah, this was just okay. Because when I was growing up, I was more into like guitar rock, like things like Def Leppard and Guns N' Roses. Like that was the kind of Poison. Like those are the kinds of rock bands I listened to. And ZZ Top didn't really fit that mold, partly just because of their age and the fact that the guys didn't look like the bands that I enjoyed.
Right.
But the more I started to listen to their songs and their videos, which I'm sure we'll talk about, like they really started to make an impression on me, and I really started to dig what they had going. And over time, because I listen to a lot of retro radio through various satellite channels and streaming services, like they're very well represented on the classic rock channel, the 80s channel, the 70s channel, the pop sounds of the past channel. Like they sort of cross a lot of genres. Mm-hmm. And so they have a wide appeal to a lot of people. And not every single song they have sort of crosses that, but one song might sort of hit the blues and countries chart, and then another song might hit the pop charts, and then another song might hit the rock charts. And it's a testament to their ability that a band can sort of fit all of those different genres and still be the same band and still stay true to what it is they're trying to do. And I mean, the fact that ZZ Top was around in their original lineup and I got it written down here, they were around for 51 years. Yep. That's got to be a record.
Yeah.
The only other band I can think of that might even come close to that, but definitely not beat it, but come close to that, is U2.
Or the Stones, maybe.
Well, and I mean, R.I.P. Stones just lost another member this week, or lost their first member this week. But there are not a lot of bands that can say they have had the exact same lineup for all of those years and continued to put out new tracks and tour and not want to kill each other. Because a lot of bands, that's usually what happens. After a certain number of years, they get under each other's skin and there's personal differences, and this guy married that woman and that guy married this woman and they don't like each other and we've broken up, and for whatever it might be, personal reasons that have nothing to do with the music, or one guy's like, I think this song is great, I think this song is crap. Okay, fine, go and do your own solo thing. But ZZ Top is one of those unique bands where for 50 plus years these guys did their music and they stayed together, and they didn't go off and join other bands and do side projects for a decade and then come back and do a reunion tour as a cash grab. Like they continued to just do what they did all these years. And the fact that the band members are 71 and 72 years old and we're still doing it until literally the day they died, that just is awesome. Mm-hmm. So
I think
that's
for me, I probably, honestly first got exposure to them, as I think probably a lot of people did, when Eliminator came out, and
for sure.
I just thought they were one of the most original bands I had ever heard in my life. And I mean, you can walk by a radio and you can literally hear just one note from one of their songs, and it's ZZ Top. And that's pretty incredible when you think about it. Not too many bands you can do that, where you can just hear like one or two notes and you know it's them. Derek, as you know, I fancy myself to be a bit of a musician, a poor one at that. I mean, but that's why I had to get the MBA. I need something to fall back on, just in case my music career didn't take off,
Good idea. Good idea.
But since I play the guitar, that's my main instrument. I liked ZZ Top right from when I first heard them. And I think a lot of it for me had to do with Billy Gibbons and his guitar playing. He was just so bluesy. Like, man, is he a talented musician. He's way more talented than me. Although there was that time I did the OG rap, and that was something. I mean, you got to admit. But anyway, I want to talk about the band a little bit from a musical point of view, because let's be honest, people love to classify things, right? Whether it's movies or music or anything, even stuff that's not pop culture related. And for me, you kind of touch base on this, and that is, classifying ZZ Top is really hard to do. Like, are they Southern rock? Are they blues? Are they pop rock? They almost seem to create a completely different music genre, right?
Yep.
Like, they're just so incredibly unique. Like, they're pulling their influences from, like I say, they're deeply rooted in the blues, but they've got that Southern sound, but they're not Southern necessarily. They're not like Jordan. They're from Texas, right? And I don't know. So they're just amazing. But maybe we can take a look at them individually as musicians. Trios, by the way, are not all that common if you think about it. Most bands have at least 4 members, right? Some have 5.
Typically, yeah. Well, and I mentioned U2 earlier. Like, they got 4.
Yeah.
Like it's 3 is tough. Like, when I think of bands with 3 members, I think ZZ Top.
Yep.
And I think The Police.
And like
honestly,
Rush.
Nothing else really. Rush, another great example.
Triumph.
But not too many others come to mind.
I mean,
really,
there's
Triumph only had
Nirvana.
3? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, Nirvana and Green Day. But I mean, like, most bands have like 4 or more members, right? But let's talk about these guys individually for a minute, if we could. Billy Gibbons, I mentioned. I honestly believe he is one of the most underrated guitar players that's ever lived. And by the way, have we ever done an episode on best guitar players of all time? I feel like we haven't. We did drummers.
I don't know. You've definitely done frontmen. I know that. And we did drummers. So maybe we got to go back and do guitarists.
We did best guitar solos, but I don't think we ever did best guitarists. We got to put that on the list. The thing is, I don't even know if Billy Gibbons would make my top 5, but just to prove just how criminally underrated I think he is. But like I said, he's just so unbelievably bluesy in his playing. And like I said, their music is just, you can just recognize it right away. And for me, a lot of that has had to do with him and his guitar playing. So one of the things that makes his guitar style so unique, and I don't know if you know this, Derek, but it's his choice of guitar pick. Do you know what he uses? I know you're not a guitar player, but I'm sure you know most guitarists use a hard plastic guitar pick to play the guitar, right? Do you know what Billy Gibbons uses?
No idea.
A coin.
Wow.
He started out using a Mexican peso. And then he actually hooked up with a company that started making these custom picks out of coins. Like, they would cut the coin like into the shape of a traditional guitar pick, the triangle. Sure. And like, he's, the thing is, if you pluck a guitar string with a metal coin, it gives the guitar a completely different sound. It's also what gives Brian May's guitar playing such a distinct sound from Queen. It makes him so unique because he uses a coin. He uses a sixpence.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. He uses a sixpence. That's why if you listen to Brian May, it's got that kind of twangy, really kind of cool tinny sound. Same thing. He uses this sixpence coin from England. But the problem is why most people don't use coins is because it just destroys your strings. You basically
that can't be good for the instrument.
You're breaking strings like every third song on stage. But the thing is, with the peso and with the sixpence piece that Brian May uses, they don't have the serrated edge on them like a quarter would. So it's not quite as hard on the strings, but you still get like metal shavings off the strings, and you just pop them really, really quick. But so, like I say, most guitar players use a plastic pick. It's practical, right? But Billy Gibbons gets that unique sound. And it's so totally worth it, Like, I remember when you and I went to see ZZ Top in concert, you were impressed with his guitar playing. Because I remember in one of his solos, I remember you were saying something to me. You turned to me and you're like, man, he's still got it, or something to that effect. Yeah. But so what's your take on Billy Gibbons? That's mine. I think he's just fantastic.
Well, I mean, this is one of those bands where it's like I don't really have strong feelings about any one member. It's more just like sort of the band as a whole. But yeah, I agree with what I pretty much agree with everything you've said. It's like, I think he's underrated. I think he's way more talented than people give him credit for. And I think I'm going to fall back on what I had said a minute ago. I'm like, the fact that the band has been around and been successful and has been able to maintain their reputation for 50 plus years is a testament to the ability of all three guys. Like, if you had a weak link anywhere in there, if any of the guys had sort of lost a step, if any of them were, not as good as they actually are, the band wouldn't have lasted this long. So I think that's really sort of my take on it, is just, they've had 50 years to get it right. And they pretty much got it right almost immediately out of the gate when they were in their early 20s. And they've just been able to build on that ability and that success. And it's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get at it. I mean, you should, right? The whole thing, how do you get to Carnegie Hall of practice? It's like these guys have been able to do it and build on it for 50 years. And I think if they didn't have that ability and they didn't have that talent, they would have been called out for their BS ages ago. But the fact that they've been able to demonstrate their ability, and I don't want to say reinvent themselves, because I don't think they really have reinvented themselves as much as stay ahead of trends, set trends, followed the trends, been in the right place at the right time with the right sound. And that's a testament to any strong musician of, are you a leader or are you a follower? Are you a trendsetter or are you someone who follows the trends? And I think they've sort of, they've sort of been swimming in and out of all of those categories throughout their career, where they've sort of carved themselves out a niche and said, like, this is who we are and this is the kind of sound we have. And they've been able to make that sound work in these other genres to gain success with an audience that might not otherwise have ever heard them. Like, if they had never come out with songs like, so you mentioned the Eliminator album, which I'm sure we'll talk about in more detail. Like, it had Sharp Dressed Man, which you've already talked about. It had Legs, which was a huge hit. It had Give Me All Your Lovin'. Like, those were all pop songs. Those were all pop hits. That was my introduction to this band in the early 80s, was the Eliminator album with those three hits. And it's like, I would never have listened to this band based on the work they had put out before that if I hadn't heard these songs first. This is what sort of opened the door to ZZ Top for me.
I think it did for a lot of people.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, what else have they done? And then you go back and listen to their older stuff, and it's very much blues. It's very much that rhythm and blues, which is certainly not my it's not my bag, but I can appreciate it and I can certainly enjoy it. And, songs like Lagrange, one of their earliest hits. Yeah, it's like that is one of their signature songs. But I didn't know that in the 80s. Like, when you ask me, ZZ Top, it's like Legs. That's their song. Mm-hmm. And then you go back and listen to the stuff from the 70s, and you're like, wow, these guys they had something back then. And like, you listen to Lagrange and you listen to Legs, you're like, that's the same band. And that to me is a testament to their ability.
No kidding. Oh, so just to get back to the band for a bit, Dusty Hill, we mentioned, obviously, sadly, passed away. And I'm so glad we got a chance to see them play. God. But the thing was, with him, not only did he play the bass, he played keyboards and he sang lead vocals on a few songs.
He did. He definitely did.
Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers and Tush come to mind. Those are the two that he really sang. But he also wrote the songs. Like, all three of them wrote all the songs together. Yeah. And the thing, if you think about him as a bass player, and I played bass as well, and he was a very technical player, where you've got Gibbons with all the flash, and all the style. Hill did what the band needed him to do, and that was just to provide this rock solid bottom, just that groove to the music. And I think he did that better than anyone else could have in that situation. God, he was good. He was like the bass player is usually underrated, in the band, and kind of slips in. He certainly was no exception.
One of the things that I always remembered about Dusty Hill, this is sort of like adjacent to the music, is the cartoon show from Mike Judge, King of the Hill, that ran through like the 90s. So the family was named Hill, Hank Hill and Peggy Hill and Bobby Hill, like that was their name. And so in one of the episodes, Dusty Hill from ZZ Top was revealed to be a cousin of Hank Hill, the main character on the show. And when he showed up in the one episode, he was like a practical joker who had this great sense of humor. And like Hank just disdained the fact that he was able to make a living as a musician because he didn't have to work at it. And it was like, that's not a real job. And meanwhile, Dusty Hill was like constantly playing practical jokes on like the straight-laced Hank Hill character. And that, for some reason, that episode always stuck with me. Now, I don't know if Dusty Hill was really like that, like the way they portrayed him in the show, but I'd like to think that maybe he was, because they really portrayed him as a guy who liked to have a good time and like, you know, still had the work ethic of the musician, but liked to cut loose a little bit. And it's like, you know, maybe they tweaked it a bit to make it a little more palatable for a national cartoon syndicated primetime show. But, you know, I kind of want to think that maybe that was what he was like. And for some reason that's always stuck with me. So I kind of hope that is how he was like.
Yeah. Frank Beard, interesting guy. He had a lot of problems with drugs and alcohol. It's really amazing he stuck with the band as long as he did. It's something came to mind when you were talking before, you know, how long they've stuck together through thick and thin. And it's just, in some ways, it's amazing they stuck together, because he really had some issues. I mean, we're obviously so lucky that they stuck together. But I think, like Billy Gibbons, Frank Beard is one of the most underrated drummers in rock music. You know, he hit the drums just so damn hard when he played, but he was also kind of a minimalist, you know, when it came, he reminds me of Charlie Watts. Like we mentioned, he just passed away too. Like, just all about the groove, you know, just providing the backbone for the music. And he just did it so good. And it wasn't that he was always minimalistic all the time, because he wasn't. Because you mentioned LaGrange. When you go back and listen to that song, when the drums kick in, like, he's counting threes. He's going one on the hi-hat, 2, 3 on the snare. Like, it's a really cool triplet roll that he does. But it just totally provides the groove for the song, you know? But mostly, if you listen to their music, it's just about him just getting into the groove. Just these sort of driving, just really simple rock beats, but just help give them that sound. I think Frank Beard has as much to do with giving ZZ Top their sound as Billy Gibbons' guitar playing. That's what I think.
Yep. The only other thing that I always found was, you know, sort of funny / interesting was ZZ Top was known, or became known, for the long beards.
Yep.
Except for the drummer, whose name was Beard, didn't have a beard. Yeah. And I mean, that was no end of jokes that went around that. And I just thought that was hilarious.
Me too.
All those years, the other two guys were like, they were known for these long beards. And
that was their signature
look.
Right?
That was their signature look. And I remember in the 80s, the Gillette razor company offered them like a ridiculous amount of money to do a commercial where they shaved off their beards using a Gillette razor. Yeah. And they're like, not a chance.
No way. That's their
look.
It
was just, yeah. And I always thought it was hilarious that the fact that the only guy in the band without a beard is the drummer, and his name was Beard. Yeah. Right? You could have written that better. Like, if that was in a movie, no one would believe it. It's like, truth is stranger than fiction. So that always makes me laugh. It always makes me smile. And I'm sure the band sort of got a kick out of it as well, because I'm sure they could have said to him, like, dude, we're all growing beards. You got to start growing this. But it was just like, I got to think they sort of found it humorous, the fact that Beard was the only guy without a beard. So
you touched base before on their music videos. It's worth coming back to. So MTV premieres in the United States August the 1st in 1981, right? And then it was followed by Much Music up here in Canada 3 years later. It came out in August of 84. And it was just a game changer for music.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly because it obviously changed the way people consumed music, right? Up until then, you got your first exposure to songs on the radio, you know, and then you went out and you bought the albums. But with MTV and Much Music, for guys like me and you up here in Canada, Derek, like, this was where people gained exposure to a lot of artists and their songs. And it was through watching these music videos. And the thing is, you wouldn't think ZZ Top would be the sort of band that would have a huge presence when it comes to pop music videos. But they did. Like, did they ever? You know?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Any memories you have about ZZ Top and their music videos? Because we lived it. We were there.
Oh yeah. So this is right in my wheelhouse. So I have tons of stuff on this.
Go.
So for me, as much as the ZZ Top on the radio was a thing, ZZ Top on music videos is what did it for me. That's what won me over. Yeah. So there's the old adage of like, that, rock and roll is all about chicks and cars. Well, ZZ Top did it better than anyone else with their videos. They had beautiful women in all their videos, and looking back on them, some of it's quite shameless and probably wouldn't really fly today, but at the time they knew what's sex sells, and so they did it. And they had the car, the Eliminator Coupe, 1933 Ford Coupe car.
The 33 Ford Coupe, the red coupe, yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a car guy, but that car it stands out. Like, I did a lot of web searches before we did this podcast about the car, and it was like all these articles were like the top 5 or the top 10 cars in pop culture, and the ZZ Top car made every single list without question, and in many cases it was number 1 or number 2. And they were just saying it was like it had some, it was the 1933 Ford Coupe, but it had some tweaks, and it had some a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Again, I won't go into the details because honestly I couldn't really care less about the specifics. And then it had the decal along the side with the ZZ stylized painted over the red, like it was a red car with the stylized ZZ on the top, and it appeared in like 5 or 6 of the videos, and it was always like the hot chicks driving the car, and they had the ZZ keychain that was always prominently featured in the videos, where some down on their luck someone or other was given the keys as like, you have been blessed. Here are the keys to this awesome car, and your life will forever be better. And so you had it appear in obviously the Eliminator album featured the car on the cover, and they dubbed the name of the car Eliminator. And so it appeared in the video for Gimme All Your Lovin'. Then it appeared in the Sharp Dressed Man video. Then it appeared in the video for Legs. So you had 3 of the 4 big hits off of this album had the video. TV Dinners was another minor hit off the album. It didn't have the car, but Gimme All Your Lovin', Sharp Dressed Man, and Legs. And it was like this sequential story about like who is the car and the women that drive this car going to help next. And the 3 guys from the band were always like there, but they weren't the ones driving the car, but they would appear with the car. And then when Afterburner came out, the car became like a spaceship. Yes. And so you had the video for Sleeping Bag, and you had the video for Rough Boy. That again, it was this sequence of, well, where's it going next? And so Sleeping Bag had the car that became the spaceship, and then Rough Boy had the spaceship car going into like a space station. So you had 5 videos over the course of 3 or 4 years that had hit songs that featured this car in some form or another, just again to perpetuate the fact that it's like, we're not even focusing on the band. It's the image and the lifestyle the band is selling. It's the car, it's the women, it's if you've got the keys to this car, you have been blessed. So like in Gimme All Your Lovin' and in Sharp Dressed Man, the keys go to some low life loser. And then in Legs, it goes to like this woman who again with the Legs, the idea that she's not popular, but she can become popular, and that gets a makeover, and she gets a car, and she gets the guy, and all the rest of that. So it's just the fact that they were able to roll this visual of this car into their video. Now you're not focusing on these 3 slightly older dudes that are definitely nothing to look at. 2 of them have these long, scraggly beards, but it's like they're just there in the background as like the spirits of awesome. And it worked. It was the right place, the right time, with the right idea and the right visual. When you've got, the MTV generation of how you look can be even more important than how you sound. Like you have Duran Duran breaking on MTV. Look at how awesome we look. Now, it helped that they could sing, and it helped that they were pretty. But if they were ugly, I don't think they would have had nearly the success. And ZZ Top sort of just rode on that kind of idea of, don't worry about us. We're nothing to look at, but look at our awesome car, and look at the beautiful women that are driving this car. And it just, that brought them from a successful band to an awesome, super successful band. So.
Yeah, I agree, because for me, they didn't just make music videos. They made some of the most iconic music videos of the 80s. And let me tell you. Oh,
yeah, for sure.
For me and you living through that time, that's no easy feat to do. There were some really, really good videos back in the 80s. But the thing is, I'll be honest, I went back and I watched some of their 80s videos recently, and I got to admit, they don't hold up all that well.
No.
They just don't look good, you know.
But a lot of them don't. You can't single them out as the one group. It's a lot of objectifying women in so much of what they do, but that was so much of how music videos were at that time.
Yeah, it wasn't even that.
Not to excuse it at all.
It wasn't for me. I didn't really think it. If anything, I don't think they did objectify the women, and I'll come back to that in a second. I know it sounds crazy, but like the thing is, they just have this unique look, like you said. You know, not just with the beards, but remember the fuzzy white guitars? Love those. And the car, like you mentioned. And they also had that silver keychain for the car. Remember the ZZ Top logo?
With the ZZ, yeah.
I used to have one of those when I was a teenager. I bought one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I did.
Nice.
But the thing for me with their videos, and this is where I'm saying that's, like, I don't know if they objectify so much. Because here's the thing. If you take a couple of old guys with long beards and you put them in a music video with a bunch of young girls in bikinis, well, things can get a little bit creepy really, really, really fast. But that's not what it was. Because you had ZZ Top, like you mentioned, they basically were the guys that helped other people be successful.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it wasn't them interacting with these hot chicks.
No, yeah, they weren't with the girls.
Because that would have been creepy.
Yeah. They helped the young guy become a sharp dressed man so he could get the girls, you know? They helped by making that car magically appear, like you said, so they could all get in, the teenagers could get in and go for a ride. It was like the band was the conduit for other people to be, you know, successful and have fun. And for that reason, for me, it just worked, you know, like you said. Their videos were great. Like, but they handled it right, I thought.
I agree. Yeah.
We cannot talk about ZZ Top and not talk about their songs and some of our favorite songs before we get into it. Like, 'cause for me, I tend to, when I think of ZZ Top, I think they kind of stopped making music, like, you know, with Afterburner. They were done. But I remember I used to, as I mentioned before, I used to DJ at a bar. And this would have been in the 90s. And in around 96, so what we did was we used to get these CDs. We would subscribe to this service. And once a month, they'd send a CD with a whole bunch of like random songs on it. They were like the popular songs at the time, right, for that month. And then you always had the updated music to play at the bar. And I remember getting it, and there was most of it was like popular kind of dance music, which is what I used to play at the bar. And then there was a section at the bottom that had country songs, and there was a section with some rock. And I remember in 96 getting one of these CDs and looking at it, and in the rock section there was a ZZ Top song. And I was like, what? They're still making music? I mean, I didn't even know that. And the song was called Reminisce. I don't know if you're familiar with this. But if you're not,
I think I am.
Go and look it up on YouTube or whatever. And the song is phenomenal. It's the spirit of their old stuff, you know, and the stuff from the 80s and the 70s kind of all mixed together. Rhythmine. It's really, really, really good. But normally we do top 5 lists around here, but instead we decided not to really do like a traditional top 5 of their songs. But I think it's worth talking about some of our favorite songs. So do you have like one that you want to just kind of start with, and we can just talk about some other favorite songs?
Yeah. So again, not to say like this is my number 5 out of a 5 song pick, but I want to talk about one we haven't talked about yet, and that is the song Double Back from Back to the Future 2, Back to the Future 3.
You almost forget about that one, don't you? Like you forget. ZZ Top did that. Jeez.
So for those who maybe are a little bit younger, Back to the Future in 1985 was one of the biggest movies of the year, one of my top 10 all-time favorite movies ever.
Yep.
And the first Back to the Future movie featured Huey Lewis and the News. They did Power Love. Again, huge number 1 hit. And Back in Time, I think, was another one by Huey Lewis and the News. So that first movie was a great movie with a great soundtrack. Then a few years later, they decided we're going to make a sequel. And they filmed Back to the Future Part 2 and Back to the Future Part 3 together, which was not typically done.
No.
Yeah, like, so, I mean, years later, they do that with things like Lord of the Rings, where they filmed all 3 of them together. But this was like not something that happened very often. So it was like a real risk. And as a part of that, quote unquote, experiment, they had ZZ Top do songs for the soundtrack, because I guess Huey Lewis was not interested. Again, I don't know the specifics, but I got to believe at this point, Huey Lewis is like, we've done our bit. We're done. We're not interested in coming back for part 2 and part 3. You do what you want. So for Back to the Future Part 3, they had ZZ Top do this song called Double Back, which was prominently featured in the soundtrack for the third part of the movie. And in the movie, in Back to the Future Part 3, they go back to 1885, like the old Wild West. And the ZZ Top members actually make a cameo appearance in the movie. It's a very short appearance, but it's kind of a wink. It's a pretty funny scene. If you haven't seen it, I would strongly recommend you go back and take a look. I mean, the movie's not fantastic, but it is what it is, and it's worth a watch. But the song Double Back and the music for it is used throughout the movie, and even though it came out in 1990, it sounds very much like the songs they put out in 1983 on Eliminator, which again, definitely is my all-time favorite ZZ Top album without a question. And so even though this song was 7 years later and they had started to change their music a little bit, and just music in general, 7 years later, music is going to change, they were able to sort of reach into that same area and pull out this new song. So this would definitely be on my top 5 list, Double Back by ZZ Top from the Back to the Future 3 soundtrack. And it's one that gets overlooked a lot, but every time I hear it, it brings a smile on my face. The video's kind of creative because they've taken scenes from the movie and they've inserted the band into it. Like they superimposed the band into scenes of the movie. Again, it's not done very well. So when you watch it now, you're like, oh my God, this kind of looks cheesy, but it's kind of funny at the same time. So no, I really enjoy it. This is definitely one that I don't think gets enough love, that people who are fans of the band should give another chance to. Double Back.
When I think of ZZ Top, I mean, like this, they have got so many songs and it spans, such a wide range of like some of their old stuff and their later stuff with Eliminator. But I still think the one that jumps out the most to me is Legs. Like that's the one
for sure.
I think of Legs when I think of ZZ Top. And as a guitar player, I think a lot of like popular rock songs had 3 chords. But Legs didn't. It had a funny lick to it. Like the lick is actually quite difficult to play on the guitar. And it's not that it's technically difficult, because it's pretty straightforward, with some open D, but it's just to get the feel for it is really, really, really tough. Again, it's a testament to Billy Gibbons, but it's not your typical guitar lick for a song, if you look at it technically, but God, that's a good song. It's just so good. That's the one that jumps out to me.
It's got the iconic video.
Yeah.
Which, arguably, it's one of these ones, again, features the car. And honestly, the videos that feature the car are all pretty much the same. Like, who are we kidding? But I think Legs is arguably the best of them, in part because it's the woman that's being empowered. So from today's point of view, it actually holds up a little better than some of the other ones. But Legs is their iconic 1980s hit, especially early 80s. No, I agree with absolutely. I mean, as much as I love Sharp Dressed Man, Legs has got to be the big hit off that album. That's got to be their most famous. I mean, I would say if someone said, like, what is ZZ Top's biggest all-time greatest hit, it's got to either be Legs or Lagrange. Like, in my mind, those are their 2 absolute 1-2, and depending on who you ask, the order will change every day. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I think so. Well, I might go Lagrange. I really like, but I think I might go with Sharp Dressed Man up there too, just because it was so popular. And for me, with Sharp Dressed Man, again, it's not your typical 3 chords, like the way that they play it. They kind of play it the same way that they play with when they do Tush. Like they only play the bottom part of the power chord, and it's just, I think it's one of the all-time great intros in a rock song. Sharp Dressed Man. It's just so iconic. It's just, you hear it, it's just so good. So I would put Sharp Dressed Man up there.
Yeah. And I mean, that, like I said at the top, Sharp Dressed Man made my top 5 all-time favorite 80s rock songs, and that's largely why. Like, it's a great song. You hear it at every wedding you ever go to. Anytime there's like any sort of fashion show, it's one of those songs that is not going away. And there's just a lot to like about it. One of the other ones that I like that again, this is sort of, I don't want to say a guilty pleasure because that always implies something that kind of crappy, but I always like the song Sleeping Bag from Afterburner.
Afterburner,
which
yeah.
I don't want to say is a guilty pleasure because it was a pretty big hit. It wasn't obviously anywhere near the hit that Legs was, but
it was the biggest hit off that album. Yeah,
it was a bigger hit off that album. It had a video again that featured the car. It had some kind of cheesy animation incorporated into it, but again, it was a product of its time. But it's just one of those songs that sounded a little different than the kind of things they put out, but was still had a ZZ Top sound. So I've always had a soft spot for it. So I think that would have made my top 5 list as well. Just simply because I enjoy it, not necessarily because I think it was one of their top 5 best songs, but Sleeping Bag's always been one of my sort of fan favorites.
So one of the ones that I discovered a bit late, because again, like I said, like most people, I came in to ZZ Top with Eliminator and then went back and was like, oh, listen to their old stuff. One of their older ones that I always liked was Tush. And the thing is, so many of their songs were about sex, which I mean, like most rock bands, that's what they sing about. But instead of being sort of subtle about it, like some rock bands like, oh, baby, baby, I love you. Like ZZ Top, they were one of the first bands that just came out and just said it. Like they've got songs like Tube Snake Boogie, Pearl Necklace. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And Tush. Like, I mean, it's just straight up, Lord, take me downtown. I'm just looking for some Tush. Like, it's just, they're not beating around the bush. No pun intended.
No. Yep.
Like, it's just, I don't know. The song it's good. And I remember hearing it in, I want to say it was in An Officer and a Gentleman. They use that song in one of the scenes too. It's just the song is good, and I had a band in high school. We used to play that song quite a bit, and it's a kick-ass song. It really is. People just like it. So,
all right, I want to give you a few sort of random one-off trivias because I can tell we're getting close to the end here. Yeah. So, for anyone who's a fan of ZZ Top,
before we get into some trivia, I want to mention too about LaGrange because you mentioned that, and just an amazing guitar intro. And then when the drums kick in, the vocals, the thing with this is one of those songs that you don't think would ever find mainstream success, Yeah,
no kidding.
But it's just so damn good. I think that's really the secret to me to the whole ZZ Top thing, the whole ZZ Top experience, if you will. Musically, these guys were incredible. And like you said, they stayed together over 50 years. And like, just amazing. So LaGrange, and just another honorable mention I want to mention was Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers.
Nice.
The thing is, it makes them, like when you first listen to it, like it's such a great song. It makes them seem like they're the tough guys. Hey, we're drinking and we're fighting. But again, they're just the conduit because the song is about them playing on stage in some dive bar and everyone around them is drinking and fighting. But it's such a good song. So, oh, God, they got good stuff. I think, as I think about it more and more, as much as I love Legs and that's their iconic song, I think some of their earlier stuff is some of their best stuff. But, that's just me. Anyway, so you got some trivia.
Stuff is the earlier stuff is definitely like more raw. And the stuff in the 80s seems a little more refined. I don't want to say they're sellout, but it's like, I think they realize like any other artist, you get to a point in your life where you're like, I want to get paid. And I think that Legs was sort of that good mishmash of they're able to still stick to their roots and do what they like to do, but tweak it just enough to meet that mainstream audience's desire so that you can cash a paycheck. You can make the video. You can be a hit. I mean, not that they necessarily knew that those songs were going to be hits, but they really seem to have a good sense for what do we need to do to be successful, like to really reach that broad audience. And I think that they did that without, like, you look back at those albums. Yeah, they have those big hit pop hits, but there's a lot of songs that like those B-side tracks that are still on the album that are really throwbacks to that 70s sound. So, I think they did a good job sort of bridging that gap.
So you mentioned you had some trivia. So
yes.
What's
a few
some things
quick things before we move on.
Yeah.
So if you're a big fan of ZZ Top, or maybe you're not that big a fan of ZZ Top, but you want to know a little bit more about them, there is a fantastic documentary that came out. It's on Netflix right now. It came out a couple of years ago. It's called ZZ Top, that little old band from Texas. Now, I didn't really know much about ZZ Top before the Eliminator album. So my intro to ZZ Top was in 1983 when I was 9 years old, and I saw the music video and I'm hearing the songs on the radio. And I knew ZZ Top from that point forward. In the more recent years, years later, I got to know that, hey, they were actually a really big band in the 70s and late 60s, which I didn't really know any of their stuff. So this documentary was really good for me because like the first half of it was 100% new to me. I didn't know anything about how they got together, or what their origins were, or the hardships they faced, or those first few albums. So although towards the end of the documentary, they start to get into like what they're doing now, and you're like, oh, whatever. But I really enjoyed this. Chris, I think you said you saw it and you didn't really like it as much as I did. But if you want to know more about ZZ Top, it seemed to be a pretty even-handed account of their career path. It's called ZZ Top, that little old band from Texas. It's available on Netflix right now. Chris, did you watch this one?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was good. I thought it was informative, but I don't think it was really greatly produced, and I just don't think they had a lot of like footage of the band from back then.
Yeah.
To really kind of punch it all up. But I mean, I like ZZ Top. I mean, they're great. But yeah, I thought the documentary was just okay for me.
Yeah. So, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the documentary. So a couple other quick things. So ZZ, your band is a big band when you were asked to perform at the Super Bowl. So in 1997, ZZ Top performed at Super Bowl 31. So the list of bands that have performed at the Super Bowl over the years is a pretty exclusive list, and they are on the list. So that in itself is a pretty huge milestone. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2004. Again, a very exclusive club that has very specific requirements. So again, not everyone and their mother gets into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So the fact that they are in and have been in since 2004 says a lot about their band. And the one that I found most interesting, this little trivia bit, was the Rolling Stone magazine put out a list of the top 100 greatest rock bands ever of all time. ZZ Top was number 32 out of 100. I got to think number one was the Beatles, but you got to think, if you make this list and you are number 32 out of 100, you beat 68 other bands on this list. Like, this is a very prestigious list to be a part of. And the fact that they were number 32 out of 100, again, I think is just icing on the cake for how great this band is and how influential their music has been and how many people enjoy what they have to say. I think that's a great way to sort of end this, is they are one of the 100 greatest bands ever.
The thing is, any band that's together 51 years, they're not three guys up on that stage playing together. They're one, and they were.
Absolutely.
They really were. They were absolutely fantastic. So anyway, let's have some
fun with Caveman.
Derek, we're going to play a little game that I'd like to call ZZ Top Lyrics. Okay? Here's how it works.
Okay, I was worried. I was like, if you ask me ZZ Top trivia, I'm going to embarrass myself and not know any of the answers here.
Because
fire away.
So I'm going to give you some lyrics. All you got to do is just identify the ZZ Top song that the lyrics are from. Okay?
Okay.
You got to whip it up and hit me like a ton of lead. If I blow my top, will you let it go to your head?
That would be Gimme All Your Lovin'.
That is correct, from 1983's Eliminator. All right. Just let me know if you want to go to that home out on the range. They got a lot of nice girls.
Jeez, that could be so many songs. Is that LaGrange?
Yes, from 1973's Tres Hombres. All right.
Nice.
She likes wearing lipstick. She likes French cuisine. But she won't let me use my passion unless it's in a limousine.
Wow. I have no idea.
Oh, it's so hard when you don't hear it with the music. She likes wearing lipstick. It's got me under pressure. Okay?
Oh, okay.
All right, here's an easy one for you. Take me back, way back home. Not by myself, not alone.
Oh, geez. I'm going to guess because I don't recognize it. Is that from Double Back?
No, that's Tush. That's Tush. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Right. Now go out and get yourself some thick black frames with the glass so dark they won't even know your name.
Yeah, it's got to be Cheap Sunglasses.
Yes. From the DeGuello album in 1979. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's one. I've got to have her.
Oh. Wow. I should know that. I'm like, I'm hearing the lyric and I'm like, I can't place it. Is it? I don't know.
It's from Legs.
Oh, it
I've
is
got
Legs.
to have her. That girl is all right.
I'm like singing it going, I need the next line.
I know. It's so hard when you don't hear it with the
so
music.
difficult.
Lyrics are not easy. All right, here's one. If you see me walking down the line with my favorite honky tonk in mind, well, I'll be here around supper time with my can of dinner and a bunch of fine.
Jeez. Is it TV dinner?
No, it's beer drinkers and hellraisers.
Oh, yeah. I'm not really familiar with the song.
Here's an easy one for you. Zip it on around while it's on the ground. Spread it out and lay it down.
I want to say, no, it's not Give Me All Your Love. We already had that song.
Think about
That's got to be
those-
Sharp Dressed Man. Sharp Dressed Man.
No, zip it on around while it's on the ground. Spread it out and lay it down as a sleeping bag.
Oh, geez. Of course it is.
Of course. All right. She is so tough, as pure as the driven slush. And that's not jewelry she's talking about. It really don't cost that much.
Based on the lyrics and the double entendre, I got to think that's Pearl Necklace.
Yes, it is. From 1981's El Loco. All right, last one. This one's going to be a tough one. I got to get you with a hard one on the last one. Well, I was rolling down the road in some cold blue steel. I had a bluesman in the back and a beautician at the wheel.
Oh, is that it's the one about Mississippi. My Heart's in Mississippi, I think it's called.
No, it's I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide. From 1973's DeGuello. Oh, jeez.
Nice.
Oh, they did pretty good. Again, it's really hard. When you hear the
It is really
lyrics
hard.
out of the song, even something like I've Got to Have Her, it's hard, right? So normally at this point of the show, one of us would nominate a film for the next show. But Derek, you had an idea for a new segment that you'd like to debut on the show. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, do I ever. So, Chris, you and I are both huge fans of fantasy sports drafting.
Oh, yeah.
Hockey
as most people know, I got my start in podcasting with the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast. I mean, I'm a fantasy baseball guy.
Yeah. So we both have this predilection for drafting stuff and earning points and being the winner and drafting a better team than the next guy.
Yep.
So I was inspired by one of the other podcasts I listened to, and I thought we can definitely get in on this action. So what I propose we do is we do a pop culture fantasy draft.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is you and I will draft a pop culture fantasy team based on a specific year. And the decade we're choosing is the 80s. So we're going to stick to the 80s. We'll do a few episodes. We will pick a specific year from the 1980s. And each of us will draft 3 movies, 3 television shows, and 3 songs from that year to create a fantasy team. And just for fun, we'll throw in a 10th pick that's more of a wild card or a guilty pleasure kind of pick that we both pick at the very end of the draft.
Like a personal choice.
Our own personal choice as our own little cherry on top of the sundae, to our own personal signature to just round out our list to get it to a nice round 10. And then we will ask some of our listeners to help evaluate who had the better list that represented that year based on our draft. So next week we'll come back and we'll do the first ever Pop Goes Your World pop culture fantasy draft from a year from the 80s. And Chris, I'm going to throw it to you. Mm-hmm. What year do you want to draft, or do you want to make it a surprise and we'll just announce it next week? So 2 things before I mention the year. I do have a year in mind that I'd like to do. Okay, good.
The 80s are my thing. Is there any way we could have some sort of money on the line or something at stake to win here? That's what I feel. That's the one thing I like about fantasy sports too. I like winning money. So is there some way that we can, I don't know, if you say we're gonna draft our team, then we're gonna throw it out there to our panel of judges. from our listeners, and they're going to pick a winner. And then do we get to win anything from that?
Well, I gotta think there's got to be something at stake besides bragging rights. Yeah, I mean the bragging rights are big. Don't get me wrong. Like nothing would make me happier than proving to you once and for all that I'm a better pop culture drafter than you are. But why don't we? I know.
I have an idea.
Okay.
I have an idea.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's sometimes it's really good to win, some sort of a trophy, right? To do this.
Okay. I love it.
We'll do this once a month. Right. So we'll do a movie and then another movie and then we'll do a top 5 and then we'll do, our pop culture fantasy draft. So once a month, we're going to exchange the trophy. And I suggest that the trophy should be my Funko Fonzie.
Ooh, okay.
So my Funko Fonzie is the trophy and the Funko Fonzie will move to whoever the winner is. So, if I win the first one, I get the Funko Fonzie and then you get the Funko Fonzie. It's really fun to say Funko Fonzie too, by the way.
It is.
It's fun. Yeah.
All right. So what year do you want us to do our draft for?
Any year from the 80s, right? I'm going to start us off.
So hang on.
Yep.
I think our intent, if this segment works out and our listeners enjoy it, we will do every year from the 1980s for a total of 10 episodes. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start at the beginning of 1980 or want to just jump in the middle?
We'll just jump in somewhere and we can kind of move around. Is that cool? Are you cool with that?
I love it.
I love randomly move around. I want to start with 1984.
That's a good year. I like that. That's a great idea. Yep. And we'll recap the rules at the start of the next episode because you and I may need to refine them a little bit between now and then as we start to draft our lists. But
3 movies.
Yeah, okay, I love it.
3 TV shows, 3 songs, and 1 personal choice. And then, like you said, what we'll do is at the beginning of the next episode, we'll flip a coin, and we'll just see who goes first, and then it just alternates. And once somebody picks something, so let's say if I pick a song, it's off the list. Like you cannot pick it. You've got to pick something else, obviously. And then we go back and forth. I think the rule should be, though, that the movie, TV show, or song has to debut in the year in question, which is 1984.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay. And we can talk more about that next week, but I love that idea. Okay. So next week we'll come back. It'll be everything 1984, and I'll demonstrate to you why I know more about 1984 than you do, and I'm going to pick a better list than you do.
Yeah, but I'm also the fantasy sports guru, so we'll have to see how this. I can't wait. This is starting to get competitive, and I like, as you know, between my story earlier on with the ting and the other ting and the other ting, I'm very, very competitive. So this is going to be just great. I'm going to tell you what. Until next episode, when we draft our first ever pop culture fantasy team. This is Chris McBride for Derek Myers saying thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.